G'day model builders. Today we're going to build, paint, chip and weather this late World War II US Navy Corsair. I'll show you how it's done. The model is a Hobby Boss Easy Assembly Authentic kit in 1/72 scale. I went for the Bunker Hill scheme. These kits are cheap and easy to build, great for beginners but also good enough for experienced builders. The details are very clean and sharp, and where there are simplifications, they aren't noticeable in the finished build. I use acrylic paint, and this is an artist's acrylic that I mixed myself. Honestly, the first coat gave some trouble. You can see that with the cowl flaps. The second coat came up nicely though. I like artist acrylics because the pigments are richer and I can mix any colour I want. The fit on these kits is good. The wings though were a little tight, so I trimmed off the pins. Even then, I ended up with a gap at the wing roots. I fixed that with some aqueous Mr. Surfacer 500, which also sorted out a couple more minor gaps and didn't even need sanding. Other than that, there were just some light mould lines to scrape off with a scalpel. I thought that a quick brush coat of primer would help the main painting. I was wrong, but this both is and isn't the paint's fault. To get opacity, a paint needs a decent amount of white or black in the mix. This is a rich blue that didn't have either, and it was thinned a lot for brush painting. The colour started to build up quickly after the second coat. I kept the paint thin to preserve the detail. Still, for what I thought would be a quick one colour project, I came close to breaking up the airbrush. Several coats later, I had a nice, even, all-over navy blue finish, but I didn't get a good work in progress shot, so you'll have to hang on and see how it turned out. The cockpit is a little basic, but the seat is pretty accurate, and it would not take much to add detail. These seat belts were a 3D design that I printed in flexible resin. They need some refinement, but stay tuned, you'll see them improve across future builds. The black base before the final aluminium finish visually separates the metallic from the straps. I'm building the aircraft with a closed canopy, but the clear parts are thin and clear, so the impression of detail needs to be added to the sidewalls and dashboard. The whole thing is then finished off with a wash. The engine is a little simplified, but the crankcase is well represented and worth highlighting. There is enough access to do some detailing, but for this project I stuck to using paint. The external tanks just came together. Good fit, good paint, and a touch of shading was all that was needed. I flattened the wheels slightly to give the impression of weight, but beyond that I kept the landing gear simple. The tailhook stripes, some shading on the struts, a little grime around the wheels, and I was done. Yellow can be tricky, but for this project, one coat was good enough. Notice I only painted the tip of the front surface of the prop. This is how it was on each of the Cessnas and Pipers that I've flown, but I can't confirm it for the Corsair. Make a comment if you think I'm right or wrong. It'd be great if you could reference a source. The rockets were a chance to add a little colour. I actually just left them in the grey primer and added a wash to provide a shadow line that visually separates the rocket from the pylon. The warhead is olivish green, and the squiggles represent text on the rocket casing. The warhead was tipped in yellow with more squiggles for text. Then a touch of black created a shadow line for the metallic coloured detonator. Hand painting the canopy. Pure joy. 2 coats of the interior colour, plus 3 coats of the exterior colour. On the plus side, if you make a slip, acrylics are forgiving and a toothpick comes to the rescue. I added some painted details to the inside of the canopy to draw the viewer in for a closer look. You might consider this to be weathering, and you'd be right, but I'm doing it here to create shadows where they are needed and to break up an overly even paint job. The gear and doors went on easily. The only thing to look for was to make sure that I attached the wheels with the flat spots on the bottom. Partway through the build, I was unhappy using Insignia Blue as the base colour. The correct colour is sea blue, but I didn't have it. It's slightly darker with a greenish tinge. I had the post-World War II version of sea blue, but that's darker again. So I mixed it 1:1 with gloss medium, and a quick all-over coat solved the issue. I went for the Bunker Hill paint scheme because the yellow nose is one of the iconic schemes for the Corsair. This time I took no chances and undercoated in white. The decals were nice. They responded well to the setting solution and are both thin and strong enough. It would be nice if the white was a little more opaque, but that goes for most decals. Weathering will sort out that slightly blue look to the white decals. I gave the propeller a coat of matte clear, and the aircraft got a quick all-over coat of gloss. This seals the decals to protect them from weathering and softens that minute step transition at the edge of the decals so that they look painted on. If I have a gripe with this kit, it is that the lines that define the control surfaces are the same size and depth as the panel lines. Next time I'd scribe them a little deeper. This time I added a dark wash to the lines. Then I removed most of it, rinse and repeat, until I got the effect I was after. This coat was a rich, dirty brown wash. It darkened everything and took the blue tone out of the white decals. I did the walkways with just a coat of matte paint, but I textured it as it dried just a little because the original item was self-adhesive grip tape. Weathering really started with light chipping on the leading edges of the prop. Moving on to the aircraft, I focus on places where maintainers, aircrew and armourers would be climbing, scrambling and dragging gear. On a Navy Corsair, this is wing roots and the area of skin over the oil coolers and around the ammunition boxes. I used a two-stage process. The first round of scratches and chipping was done with a lightened version of the base colour. This represents scratches and the edges of chip catching the light. Plus, if you see a scratch on a painted surface, it is often lighter than the paint colour, because even if the scratch doesn't go all the way through, it reflects the light differently. The second stage was chipping with dull aluminium. The aim here is to mostly stay within the area already established with the light and base colour scratches. This way, there is a 3D effect to the scratches. The brush I'm using here is very fine, used by nail artists for painting fine lines, and they're actually really cheap. The brown wash represented fuel spills and a general grime that seems to build up at the wing roots. It also toned down some of the chipping so that it was less visually abrupt. The gun stains were represented by wetting out the area with a thin coat of the black wash, so that the streaks of the brown wash feathered out as they dried. Exhaust and oil stains down the belly wrapped up the weathering. If there was one thing that I would say to a beginner that would lift the look of your models quickly, it would be to really pay attention to capturing the various lights on your models. They add detail, they add colour, and they attract the viewer's interest, and it can be done with just a touch of paint. Ideally, I would make them all in clear resin, but for this build, I wanted to work just with what the model gave me, so paint and washes to add the impression of depth had to do the trick. Let me know if I succeeded. At 1/72nd scale, wire antennas are a challenge, but this product is elastic and really thin. It doesn't get much better than this. This is the highlight package of me installing the antenna. In reality, this process took 5 attempts and nearly 30 minutes. Enjoy. With a final coat of semi-gloss clear, we are done.